To master remainder theorem, one has to first fully understand what are identities. Alright, so let's take a look at some identities. Now, you should be familiar with this identity and of course this identity as well. So what are identities then? Well, identities are basically identical items. So as you can see here, the left hand side is totally the same as your right hand side. So we say that they are exactly the same, they are identical, and therefore this relationship is the identity. Okay, it's very simple. Okay, it just simply means that left hand side is equal to right hand side. Same thing here. Okay, the only thing that you may want to take note of would be the sign that we use here. Okay, instead of an equal sign, this is a 3 bars. Okay, 3 bars type of equal sign, but it doesn't really mean anything else. It just means that they are equivalent. Okay, let's take a look at some others. Okay, now let's take a look at the first one. Okay, this first identity that we have here. Alright, now the left hand side is ax squared plus bx plus c. It's the same as 3x squared plus 7x minus 2. So what this tells us, okay, is obviously the fact that a is equal to 3, comma, b is equal to 7, and of course lastly c is equal to minus 2. Okay, now you may recall that when you first learn simultaneous equation, that well, if you have 3 unknowns, you more or less need 3 equations to solve. Okay, so this is one way. Alright, the other way that you can actually solve for more unknowns using only one equation. Okay, so these are called identities. Alright, left hand side is totally the same as the right hand side, and therefore you can compare coefficient. Okay, just simply by comparing that ax squared is the same as 3x squared, and therefore a is equal to 3, bx is the same as 7x, and therefore b is equal to 7, and of course the constant c is equal to minus 2 here. Okay, let's take a look at the second one here. Okay, now we have the same thing at the left hand side, ax squared plus bx plus c. Alright, but on the right hand side we only have 5x plus 8. So what happened to the x squared? So the only explanation that we can give will be there is no x squared at the left hand side, and therefore a is equal to 0. Okay, so because there's no x squared on the right hand side. Okay, and therefore when you compare the coefficient, there's no x squared here, so it must be a 0x squared, and therefore a is equal to 0. Alright, and of course by now you should know that b is equal to 5, and of course c is equal to 8, and so on and so forth. Okay, now let's take a look at the third one. Okay, the third one slightly more challenging, I think. Okay, so now as per what we have seen in the second example, alright, now there is no x squared in on the right hand side of the identity. Okay, and therefore the first thing we know will be a plus b will be equal to 0. Okay, now the next thing we compare will be the coefficient of x, and therefore we know that minus b is equal to positive 2, and therefore b will be equal to negative 2. So we basically solve for b this way, and therefore okay, from here, from this equation we know that a is equal to negative b, and therefore we also know that a has to be 2. Okay, so this is an example, an introduction, okay, to what identities are all about. Let's take a look at the first example.